Hello, and welcome back to Extra Literary Affairs, a podcast for the lit curious reader because why not read a little of everything? Today, Jennifer and I will conclude our literary affair with one another and discuss our end of year wrap up. Because it's already December. Oh my goodness. It feels just like it was yesterday that it was January. But here we are, about to be in the year of our Lord 2026.
Oh Lord,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so we have done wrap ups. We kind of haven't done it in a minute, but so these are our typical wrap up questions to see how we felt about the year and what we're going to do in the year to come here.
So Joey, before we dive into our questions, I would love to do just a little brief recap. So you know me, I love my spreadsheet. I had to look up how many stories we discussed in 2025 together, and the magic number is 38 short stories, and we also discussed 5 novels. So that is a lot of conversation time between the two of us, and I was really excited about that. What also was on my sheet is that was in 2025 is the first time we posted just our audio on YouTube. And then, as we discussed in a recent episode, we did our first video podcast also on YouTube. So I would have to say that 2025 exceeded my expectations in the amount of content that we had produced and just the range of stories that we've talked about. So, Joey, I'm gonna flip the script. Can I do that? Because I would like to ask what
Okay.
your favorite story out of those 38 short stories or 5 novels that we discussed in 2025. What is your favorite story that we read together?
Well, I'm going to pick a novel, even though we're usually only do short stories, obviously, because we did 38. But I'm going to say that Autumn by Ali Smith, which is something we just read and discussed,
Me
is
too.
by far my favorite.
Me too.
Look at that. We have the same one, and that has yet to happen. It was just so good, and we both read it twice in like back to back. So I loved it so much, and I'm so excited to go and get the rest of the quartet. And I really am so excited for us to continue reading them and discussing them because I'm assuming they're all going to be great. I feel like they're only going to get better than Autumn since that was her first in this quartet.
I have to agree, Joey. So we did not coordinate this obviously in advance. We kept all of our notes to ourselves on which one we were going to pick. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I was like, oh, yes, by far. It was the most recent thing we discussed. So in the world of Jennifer, the most recent thing I've experienced is probably the best thing that I can remember. And Ali Smith has been amazing. So my partner and I have actually been listening to the next story in the seasonal quartet. So we have taken a sneak peek into winter. Oh yeah, cannot wait to discuss that with you, Joey. It's going to
Oh, I'm
happen
so
probably
excited.
in, we'll say January or early February. So it's definitely on the list.
Yeah, I haven't bought them yet, but when I do, I'm probably just gonna binge them. I love her writing so much, and I know they're gonna be great stories that I'm absolutely gonna love. So I'm very excited that we decided we were gonna read that quartet because I love that. I love that so much.
And thank you, Ali Smith,
Okay,
for making this lovely quartet for us to experience. I'm in awe, in love. It's so great. And moving on.
I like that there's four. It's a series, I guess. I mean, I know that there's like some type of it's like through line in it. I don't know what it is yet. Obviously, I haven't read them, but it's usually a fantasy thing or sci-fi where you get a series of books in something. So I'm excited that she did that. Good for you, Ali Smith. Okay, so what story or author do you wish we would have included? And this could be like an author that we've already read, but we just haven't gotten to one of their stories in particular, or it could be a whole new one that we've never touched on.
So mine was a category of stories that we have not explored in a very long
Oh,
time. And I'm feeling very
you're
nostalgic
gonna say
for
New
the
Yorker. I
time.
already know it.
I'm so going to say the New Yorker magazine. And Joey, I was going through my
Called
office
it.
today and I was pulling out, issue after issue after issue. And I was like, what about this story? What about this story? I'm like, okay, you can do that on your own time, Miss Smith. You can do this on your own time, but that is something I'm definitely missing. And I do recall we made a conscious decision together that maybe we were
Hmm.
going to move away from the New Yorker stories because at that time, they were very, very similar in theme and tone. So depressing, right? You
Yeah,
remember
they're
that phase. We're just like,
also
could
sad.
we please just not have an agonizing, tragic story? Just one
And
time.
and to be fair, they were also starting to do more first chapters. Well, for Intermezzo, it was the second chapter, but they were using chapters to sell books instead of actual short stories. And I thought that was BS, and that should not have been a thing because those are not short stories. But anyway,
Correct, Joey. And you made a very strong and eloquent argument. You're like, hello, this is the introduction to your novel. This is not a short story. Novels are not short stories. I'm not a writer, but I know these things as a reader. And so that was just a really good thing that you reminded me of. But I'm like, we're going to get back to the New Yorker in some way.
well, Mom of Bold Action was a New Yorker story. And there's other ones that we've done that were New Yorker stories too. To be
It's
fair,
true. They were okay. That is technically there's a little asterisk right here that says two. Technically, Joey is correct, but Jennifer is still going to argue her point. So Jennifer is going to argue her point by saying, yes, we did pick stories to discuss in 2025 that appeared at some point in history
mhm.
in the New Yorker, but it's not like it used to be where we would just like whatever story is in this week's New Yorker is the story we're going to discuss. I think we have moved a little bit away from that randomness of topic and theme, and we're being a little bit more intentional. So I think we'll find a sweet spot for that in 2026.
I mean, I did like the sort of like you don't know what you're gonna get. I mean, we did eventually know what we were gonna get because they're all pretty similar. But there were some times where they were really just like very different. Randomly, they'd be very different in tone and theme, and so that was fun. But yeah, we can. I mean, we can still do New Yorker stories. We accidentally do New Yorker stories now. We're like, oh, this is also published there. Anything by George Saunders, I feel like he always gets published there, which makes sense. But yeah, and they were sort of rotating certain authors, I recall too. So it was just kind of like they were getting a little stale. So, New Yorker, if you're listening, I doubt it. But if you are, freshen it up, friend. I would like to do other publications, like we did Granada Magazine a couple times. We did the Paris Review once, I think. That was Ludmila Petrashevskaya, if I remember correctly. That wasn't the best story that we ever read, but it was fun. It's fun to read these literary magazines. Well, the New Yorker is not a literary magazine, but you know what I mean. Anyway, that was rambling. Okay, so the author, and I have a story that I do also would think we should read, but I want to revisit Borges. I know that we have read Borges a few times already, but we haven't. I don't think we have read him this year. I think there has been it was just the previous year. So I really want to read The Garden of Forking Paths, which is one of his other most notable works because I think it's excellent, as all his work is. And I want to get back into some Borges stories and explore those things, because they're so fantastic, and I love Borges. And that's it. That's the
Awesome.
end of my story.
I can sign up for that, Joey. I did read The Garden of the Forking Paths sometime within the last 2 decades. So I do
It's
know
good.
that it was made an impact and it'd be great to revisit it. So, Joey, are there any authors or particular stories from our 2025 season
Mhm.
that particularly made you fall in love with a particular story? Is there a favorite that you're just like, this is the one? This is the one.
I don't think it made me fall in love with just one story, but with Clarice Lispector. Now, I know that I added her to our docket there, but I had not read anything prior to The Smallest Woman in the World. And even though that's very different compared to a lot of her other work in her oeuvre, that is a story that made me want to explore more of her work. And then I started reading some of her novels and other short stories. And then, of course, we read The Egg and the Chicken. And I just absolutely love Clarissa Spector. I think she just, what we were talking about in Autumn with how Daniel Gluck like falls in love with Pauline Bodie because of her eyes and the art that she creates, and how it's like, oh, that's how I feel about authors and stuff. Clarissa Spector was someone I brought up, and Borges. No surprise. So yeah, I fell in love with all of her work that I have gotten to so far. I think she just understands like so much about humanity and emotion, and is able to evoke it in such an interesting way. And obviously it's not straightforward when it's Clarice Lispector, but it makes you like sit and be like, damn. Like I will read some of her stuff, and all of her stuff I've read so far. There will be lots of lines in her work where I'll be like, man, I have to close what I'm reading and I have to sit with that and think about it, because that hit hard and I won't be sure why it was so provocative to me in that moment until I have enough time, like a day or two, to really like dissect every part of the sentence or paragraph or phrase, whatever. And it's always like, damn, girl, are you in my head? Did you write this for me? This sentence or whatever? What about you? Do you have someone that you were like, wow, I'd never heard of this person, but I love them now. They're my favorite.
I loved that we had a chance for me to revisit Allie Smith. I know we've talked about her a lot in this episode, but it is so present and so beautiful and so fresh in our memory. The other one was N.K. Jemisin, and I had not encountered that author before. You brought her to us, and I was like, this is really, really good. And so I'm very much looking forward to doing that. And yes, Clarice Lispector does stick out in my mind. There's a lot going on there. We talk about, in the year past, about Audre Lorde, and I'd like to revisit some of her work just to kind of bring that through to our conversation. I keep seeing quotes from other people posting about Audre Lorde, and I was like, yes, those are my people, and I want to be able to join in that conversation, because our silence will not protect us. Only our words will protect us. So we've got to get out there and do some talking about it. So those will be my two picks.
I would love to also read some of her poetry, because we've done a litany for survival one time, and she has her sort of autobiography that's sort of like a mix of biography and myth. That's really interesting. Anyway, I agree, Audre Lorde. Yes, let's bring her back. I love her so much.
I love it. So, Joey, what has been one of your memorable reads this year in 2025 outside of our podcast that we have not had a chance to read together? Anything that sticks out? I know you're reading all the time, so it's like try to narrow it down to 10 or fewer entries in this category.
I'm going to narrow it down to 7, exactly 7, because it's the Dungeon Crawler Carl series that I won't shut the fuck up about, because only 7 books are out right now. Okay, number 8 comes out in May. Hopefully it stays to that timeline, because they're fantastic. They're so fun. And I'm going to eat my own words, because in another episode I said, oh, I don't have to analyze it. And you don't have to. You don't have to analyze anything you don't want to, okay? But I think this series requires you to pay very close attention to every detail, because it will come up like books later and you will be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like, this guy really planned it out. Like, he really thought of every single detail and how it was going to come back to haunt all the characters. And it's fantastic. I won't shut up about it. I recommend it all the time to people. My brother-in-law was like, oh, I'll give it a try, and then is on book 6 already. And he's like, he typically is like a slower pace reader, which is fine, but he's like, no, give me these. I love them so much. So what about you? Anything stick out in your reading world?
Yeah, so 2 things, actually 3 things, because I can never stick to just 2
I mean,
things.
I just named 7.
I know. It's like, well, that was very efficiently done, Joey. Mine are, I'll say 3. So the first one that really stuck out to me is the novel Foster by Claire Keegan, which came out in 2022. And it was introduced to me through another group of people, and we discussed it, and it was beautiful. And I looked into this novel a little bit closer, and it's very, very short. It's probably here on my desk somewhere. It's a very short novel. Actually, I'll do a Joey thing. It's this novel.
Okay, turn to the side so we can see how thin it is.
By Claire Keegan. It is very, very short. And it was put on the New York Times 100 best books of this century. So like in the last 25 years, starting with 2000 till 2025, it made the list, and I can see why. It's just really, really luscious, and it came out in 2022. And then the other book, also on the New York Times top 100 in the 21st century. So from the 21st century, the first 25 years of the century, is a book called The Last Samurai by Helen DeWitt, and that was came out exactly in the year 2000. So it's 25 years old, and it was quirky and weird. And it's getting the quirky and weird stamp of approval. It was beautiful. There's so much in that book, but it also was not completely straightforward. So I really liked it, but it's like, that's a quirky book. And that gets a gold star for me for that. And then the last thing that I read was not from this century. It was from Shirley Jackson, The Haunting of Hill House. And I was in another group. We talked about it for 4 or 5 weeks and really dug
Damn.
deeply into it. And it's like, it got better with every reading. So I am so excited, Joey. I'd love for us to do that in our spooky season in 2026, but it's very complex. So those were some extracurricular things that I've been doing, and really, really enjoying them.
Well, all winter is perfect for spooky books, for gothic horror. So I'm down. I've read it before. I haven't read it in a long time now, so I would be interested. And you know what would be fun is
I
that
do.
Richard Matheson wrote Hill House, and it's very similar to The Haunting of Hill House. It sounds the same. Hill House, Hell House. Okay, and so it'd be fun to read those and compare them and see which one we like better. He wrote I Am Legend, which most people have probably heard of, which is actually like a short story. It's not that long, so it would be fun to read those. I'm pretty sure I read them like if not back to back, then very close back to back. So it'd be fun to see which one we liked better. I think The Haunting of Hill House is better, in my opinion. No shade to Richard Matheson.
I love that idea, Joey, because one of the things that came out in The Haunting of Hill House, people were comparing it to other contemporary things that had been written, saying, wait, who ripped off who here? It was like Shirley Jackson had a lot of ideas that other authors have incorporated these tropes and these themes into their writing. So I think that would be a really fun thing for us to explore together. So yeah, Hell House, I'm down.
Yeah. Anyway, we can talk about that another time.
We will.
All right. I can't just be like, hey, you know what? Let's just start this impromptu discussion about something, and you haven't
Because
even
that
read
never
it, so it
happens
would
on this
be,
channel ever.
yeah, it
We
would
are
be,
so on it.
it would be one side because you haven't read it yet. Okay. Okay. What if you, because we are reading novels and novellas now? Is there something that you wish we would have read? It's gonna be Foster.
No, it's not, Joseph. I'm afraid it is not. Good guess. But what I wrote down this morning when I was thinking about this question is I am sad that we didn't get a chance to read Emily Wilson's version of the Odyssey. That's happening in 2026. There's no
Big,
getting around
big
it.
one.
It is our fate. The fates have spoken to me. It's happening.
Yeah, that is something that we talk about the Odyssey all the time because it's an important work in literature. So many things go back to the storytelling of the Odyssey, the
Yeah, we're
epic
going to say it's a
Homeric poem.
foundational text, right? Like this
Yeah.
is baseline. You need to know these things. And she did such a beautiful job. So when random people ask me, it's like, oh, what do you suggest I read? I'm like, Emily Wilson, The Odyssey. And they're like, really? I'm like, just do it. Just do it. You can thank me later. It is so incredibly beautiful. So, yes, let's do that, Joey. What book were you hoping that we would get to but didn't have a chance to yet?
I would really like to read a Russian novel, even though I know you do not prefer them, okay? Because I just think, like, if we read, like Crime and Punishment, okay, one of my all time favorite books, obviously by Dostoevsky, I think we would have a great time because it's a fun story and there's so much to discuss in it. And I just think it would be a good time. But I understand you're not typically a fan of Russians. But I will say, okay, so if I was going to pick a Russian, I would say that I wish we would have read a play called The Maid by Jean Genet, who I've talked about before, because that's an excellent play. And I love French playwrights. I don't know why. They just, for some reason, the French know how to write a play, in my opinion. They usually get me somehow. And that's an excellent one. I think there's so much to talk about in that. So I will say those two things. One play and one novel.
Awesome, Joey. I think that is great. I'm down for that. I would do either or both of those in the upcoming season for sure.
You're signed up for Russians. Oh my goodness. Okay. What a change. I mean, I've suggested weird stuff before that I'm like, I don't know if Jennifer's going to like this. And then you end up really liking it. Maybe I just know more about your reading taste that you know about.
Perhaps, but one of the things that we were going to talk about today is how our perspective on reading has changed over this last year.
True.
And that is exactly correct what you said. The things that I think I like, I still like. The things I
Hmm.
don't like, I've warmed up to. I have definitely opened my willingness to dive into. You're like, hey, read this, read this. And it's like, okay, like we're doing this cooperatively. If I hate it, I'll still be able to tell you that I didn't like it. But
Hmm.
even if it was something that I didn't strongly prefer on the first page, by the time we read the material and talked about it together, I can, even if it's not for me, can find the merit in having had that experience. So that is something that I really have enjoyed in this process because you're like, okay, I know this, you say this isn't for you, but by the time we finish the episode, magically it is for you. What is not for me, looking at you, Catabasis, is these long 550-page fantasy novels with every detail this woman has ever known in her entire life. I
You
loved a
gave it a
lot of that.
4.5.
Yes, at the moment, but that does not mean I want to go back and revisit
Mm.
that or give someone else a shot. I think the fantasy realm in that particular way is not necessarily my sweet spot. But I would love to be proven wrong about my own preferences on this. So we'll see what 2026 has in store.
I like this challenge of me thinking of a longer fantasy that I think you would genuinely like. I don't have anything up top of my head because I had to think about it now, but I will keep this in mind.
Awesome.
Okay.
So what about you, Joey? What has changed about your perspective or your reading habits as a result of this?
I don't think my reading habits have changed, but, and I think I read pretty broadly in my personal reading life. It's not, I don't really get like sort of stuck on like, unless we were reading like, I don't really like thrillers that much or mystery books. I mean, like, I've read them. We don't really read those, but they're hard sells for me like a thriller because I need to really buy what's going on and feel invested.
And
And
you don't.
so,
Everyone that I've thrown out for you, I'm like, what about this? You're like, nope, saw through it. What about this? Nope, 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 nope. And that has been very fun too because I'm like, but it's popular and everyone loves it. And you're like, yeah, I knew where this was going to end up on page 5. So like this did not hold any appeal for me. I'm like, good to know, Joey. Good to know.
yeah.
I like to suspend disbelief and I'll be totally naive. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what happened. It was all a dream. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't see that coming. You're like,
Or
yeah.
even when I don't guess what's gonna happen, I'm just like, that's what you decided was it supposed. This was supposed to be the conclusion. Was this? There's so many like the Silent Patient by I think his name is Alec Michaelides or something.
Yeah, you didn't like
Um,
that one. You didn't like
no, that
Gone
was
Girl. All the
stupid.
ones I'm throwing out there, you're like, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah, it just wasn't for me. I won't say it's stupid, but I will say that it just wasn't. I didn't really like the conclusion of that one. Anyway, that's not what I was trying to say. Is to talk about thrillers. I will say that I think I have become a little bit more mindful of not trying to be, not that I think we've ever been elitist, and I don't think that I've been elitist either, but um sort of being like that's not great literature, this is what great literature is, and not being like sort of gatekeepy about it. Again, I don't think that we've ever done that, but I want to make sure that I don't ever try to accidentally communicate like what you like is it's genre fiction or something like that, or if it's romance or something like that's not worth reading because everything is worth reading. Well, there are some things that I don't think you should read if it's harmful to other people. But if it's a romance, then okay, that's fine. You should read whatever you want, or a romantasy or whatever. So I just want to make sure that I keep that in mind that all reading is valid, and make sure that people feel welcome to our channel slash podcast, and that we continue to expand our horizons and give other genres a try. Like we tried, we read Catabasis. I didn't realize it was going to be more of a romantasy. Okay, I didn't know that. That's my fault. But I'm glad that we did read something like that because it is really popular. And so I think we both found the merit of that story, even though it was too long for you and it was too long for me. And it wasn't something that we will reread in the future, but it was still nice to read it, see what people were hyping it up for, and come to our own conclusions. But you know, it's still valid. It's still a book that some people should read if you like it, if you enjoy it. And
And
that's
Joey,
it.
thank you for saying that because it just occurred to me right in this moment. Not every story or novel that we read is going to be a life changing experience. And I think I set the bar really high for myself. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be transformative. I'm going to learn so much about myself and other people. And I did in Calabasas. So if that was the criteria upon which I was judging the impact of this novel, it does get high marks. But for personal pleasure reading, we talk about that a lot. Like if you say, I really love reading romances or thrillers,
Thrillies.
really, I'd like a little
I like
thrilly
those.
romantics. If you have a specific genre that appeals to someone, murder mysteries or
Hmm.
historical fiction or whatever it's going to be, we love that. Right? We
Hmm.
love that for, as you always say to me, I love that for you. It's not for me, but I love that for you. And I echo your sentiments about making sure that our conversations are inclusive, that our channel is open to people who have various backgrounds and experiences and preferences. We are learning so much from each other as a result of that. So I'm really excited about that, Joey.
Yeah, and I want to challenge us next year to read like just a hardcore romantasy or romance that's like that is what it is. And you know, because I do read romance once in a while. I'm not above it, obviously, like I just said. It's just that I don't think about it really. I don't really, it's not like I feel like I have to be in the mood to read something like that, and I'm just not usually in the mood to read it.
And Joey, I'm laughing because today, no lie, I did look up three romance
Hmm.
novels to see if I could, throw you a bone and say, let's try something different. And I read the synopsis of the three of them and I was like, I just know. So I think the reason I'm telling you this is those were not the right, it was someone else's list of like, if you don't think you like romance, try these three. And I was like, yeah, I need three more. So I think I just need to keep looking to find the romance. And I was talking to my partner about romanticy, and he's like, hello, Outlander. We've watched the entire series. You
I
read the books back
am.
then. He's like, time travel, a lot of sex. What do you think of this book? And I was like, you know, I think Joey might be right. It's not as if I've never read a romantasy. It just wasn't called that when I was
Yeah.
introduced to it, or at least that was not the lingo that was in my mind at the moment. Because I probably went like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's not for me." And I was reading it with some ladies that I work with, and I was like, "What are you guys doing?" Like, "Oh, we're reading this. It's great. There's all these novels." I'm like, "I got to catch up." And so I read it like in a week, and I was like, "Whew, that was some steamy content to
Steamy.
discuss at work." So we'll just kind of set that to the side.
Yeah, I would like to not just romance and romantasy. I would like to, you know, if we wanted to read a thriller or a mystery, something that I have read but don't gravitate towards, mixed in with all the other literary stuff that we like to talk about. But anyway, so out of all the stories that we've read this year, is there one and just one that you would recommend?
So, Joey, I'm going to go with the very last thing that I recommended, which was to someone in a healthcare setting just today. I was like, oh, you like to read? What kind of stories do you like to read? She's like, I'm not sure. I don't read a lot. I'm just getting started. I'm like, hey, here's our card. You should listen to our podcast because we can help you sort this out for yourself. And by the way, how about she was going to visit her mother for Thanksgiving? So I was like, there's a really great story by Ken Liu called The Paper Menagerie. So if you want to get really nostalgic and cry your eyes out about your mom and that relationship, that's the one for you. So that was literally a 1 day, 12-hour old recommendation from me. How about you, Joey? What's your go to?
I feel like my go-to is, and our go-to is usually The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu because it is so beautifully done. And I haven't read anything else by Ken Liu, and that is a shame because he has so much other work that he has written. So shame on me. But that's not what I'm going to recommend. I'm going to go with a very strange recommendation, and I'm going to say The Egg and the Chicken by Clarice Lispector. And I know that that one is like, this is a hard one, okay? I have recommended it to other people who have read it, and they're like, what was that about? Because I think it really it like makes people want to discuss it because you don't know what it's about. And so then you can be like, well, this is what I thought. Like that episode, we had completely different ideas of what this story was. The entire story was supposed to be about. Like not even close what we thought. So I think it just instigates conversation so well because you're just like, I know that this is what these words mean, but I don't know what they mean in this order. Okay. And I don't get why she's talking about these things for so long. And so that's why I would think it's a good one to recommend to people because I think it would be so much fun to hear what they have to say. Even if you're confused and you're like, I don't know what this means. I didn't know what it meant. I don't know what it means today. Okay. Even though we discussed it, I still can't tell you what Clarice Lispector her intent was. I have no idea. I don't, if she wrote it down, that would be fun. I would love to I would love to know what she actually intended. Not that it really matters for my interpretation, but I really think it's fun to sort of give this to people and not really warn them and then be like, well, what do you think? Like, what is the egg in the chicken? And it's just fun to, and you said in one of our previous episodes here for December that like you were talking about the dating thing because you were like, oh, if a dating club, but like you read a story and then you talk about what it is supposed to be about and you get to know someone. And I think that this story is perfect for that because it's so open to interpretation that it's whatever is most important to you at that moment in your life. And so you'll get to know that person so well based on how they're interpreting it. That's a good recommendation.
Joey, I love everything that you said about that. But the fact that your dating pool may not find that story might be a challenge, like very, very challenging. Because for me, this is very much a female body, a very feminist perspective, and that might be off-putting to someone who's not having that lived experience. But I do agree, and they might also be like, this is really difficult. Like, this guy's going to want me to think about things. So I would probably, for me personally, would start with like an easier story. But I do appreciate that you say the sky's the limit. That person can come up with any explanation for what the egg and the chicken is all about. And you're like, exactly. That's a perspective that we are going to hold on to. So Joey, I think it would be really fun for us to revisit maybe in the next episode or shortly the Paper Menagerie, like re-listen to that conversation because sometimes it's fun for us to like re-listen to our past episodes. At least I do that, and it's like, oh, that was really interesting. I forgot that we had that viewpoint, and now you have enticed me because I have not listened to that Clarice Lispector episode in a really long time. I'm going to definitely go back and revisit that because I appreciate it when we are coming at a story from such different angles, and we're like, what? How? No, this is what the story is about. And you're like, yeah, I know. This is what the story is about. It's like, perhaps we're both correct in this moment.
Yeah. That's the beauty of Clarice Lispector's work is that we're probably all right. Like you're probably right. You can't really be wrong. And I don't know what you could think about for the egg and the chicken. You were probably going to have a good interpretation. So even though it's very intimidating to read at first and you're like constantly trying to be like, what is she saying here? I think give it some time and
she's
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, Joy. And I think she's also sort of, I don't want to say accidentally, but a little bit accidentally playful because she's like, thinking about an egg means you're not thinking about an egg. And to be an egg is to be seen. But if you see the egg no longer exists because it's actually the start of a chicken. It's like, what in the world? Yeah. And so it's this playful, you think you know something and then she contradicts it. And then she tells you she's contradicting herself. And she was like, see what I mean? And we're like, no, like, could you say it again? And so she says it again in a different way. And we're like, okay, I think I understand it this time. And then she contradicts whatever you just thought you thought about the story. So that is a very playful for me, just tossing ideas back and forth and seeing if you can kind of juggle them all at the same time.
And
without getting egg on your face.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh my God. I say that. I'll say egg on my face like all the time to my family. It's just funny. All right. Anyway, yeah, you see where I'm going with that. That's a great story to recommend. I also recommend this. We have not read this year, but One of my top recommendations is The Library of Babel by Borges because it's a fantastic story. It's also kind of difficult, but not as difficult as The Egg and the Chicken.
So I will go back also to the start of this year. And I think the start of this year, let me just check the list really, really quickly. Yes, the start of 2025, the first episode that we recorded in 2025 is the Flannery O'Connor story, A Good Man is Hard to Find. And that is also an excellent, excellent story that will be a classic for all time and, going forward. A lot's happening there. So I would also love to read some more Flannery O'Connor and spend some time in her universe.
Yeah, there's a lot. She has a lot of stories. I have her completed short stories, so we could
Me
definitely do
too.
that.
So we've already have a starting point. And I did see as I was reorganizing my library recently, I have a collection of Ken Liu's short stories that I
What?
did not know that I had until I was like, hey, you, all right, let's just
I
take a
know
look.
you.
So I'm really excited I'm like, I have a physical copy of his book. And so maybe we'll also explore some more of his work
Yeah,
soon.
we absolutely do. Definitely, whatever is in the Paper Menagerie, that collection, because we obviously only read the titular story. Definitely, we need. I don't know what else is in there. I haven't read it, obviously, but I'm sure it's great. I'm sure all of his work is great.
Awesome. All right, Joey. So, Happy New Year. This is a great start to 2026, and I will see you then.